Hey, cool.
It's Mr. Gad's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
How was your week?
Good, yours?
We're busy. What? You've been busy. Oh, man.
She's around somewhere. After so many years. Out in that portal. So you can follow along if you choose. Is Nichols?
Nicole.
Usually this is for my part of the presentation, just so you have it. So does it make sense to you? No.
Just make him a Stanley. Should just always incorporate him on there.
Yeah, she does that with us too, just to have them on public record.
Oh, so then it's more legit. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
They don't act, they can't say they haven't been heard or seen or,
But when is enough enough?
I know. Oh, I mean,
I mean,
I know.
okay. Right?
Oh, Chris, where's Chris?
What?
Talk to Chris, is she coming?
I don't know. So I was wondering, is she gonna show up?
Pop up on,
She's usually on.
Oh, there we
ah, there
go.
she is.
Yay!
You good to go?
Yeah, give her a second.
How are you? Do you knit?
No. I'm not.
That one's his sister.
I know.
I can sew it. I can't knit.
Got issues.
Nah,
usually
it always
fast.
has.
Same.
Never.
It's never been right. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Cool. All right, 6:31. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gadd,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson,
Here?
Commissioner O'Shea Heidinger,
Here.
Trustee Politis,
Here.
Mayor Tarkington,
Here.
Chairperson Nyberg.
Here.
6 present.
Awesome. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. Moving on to general public input. This is limited to 10 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker. Mr. Bryan, would you like to start us off?
Good evening. Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. Just two quick comments kind of outside the box tonight, and that is, we come out of Mesa Meadows onto Clover, and Clover only has sidewalks on one side. And I've noticed over the last few months or so and years, from Lupine down, there are no sidewalks at all. And we're trying to now start dumping hundreds and hundreds of vehicles onto this artery. So I would just bring it up for Jeremy or whoever, is that we might want to take a kind of a hard look at Clover and what it's going to handle in the next year or so. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? All right, moving on.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioners, I'm sorry, I have a comment.
Go ahead and state your name.
Yeah, this is Jeff Craig. And are we talking about the Bayfield East project right now?
No.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the project. I don't have a comment on until we get to Bayfield East.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no more general public input, I'll move on to planning commissioners. Disclose any conflicts of interest.
No.
Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll move on to agenda F, the approval of the agenda. I'd entertain a motion.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
I hear a second. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Shea Heidinger,
Yes.
Trustee Politis,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 2, public hearing agenda. This is in accordance to, the 2022-02 Mustang Crossing Sketch Plan.
So, good evening, Chair Nyberg, Mayor Tarkington, and members of the commission. I'm Nicole Killian. I'm your new Community Development Director. So I'll be working very closely with you from now on and taking over, overseeing the staff review of development review projects for the town of Bayfield. So this first project is the Mustang Crossing Sketch Plan. You've seen this a couple times now, but just to reorient you to the property, this is located just south of the Clover Phase 7 and just east of Mesa Meadows subdivision. I just wanted to kind of go through the planning process so everybody knows where we're at and where we're heading from this point on. So this did go through the comprehensive plan amendment process with Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees in October. It was annexed in January, and so now we're seeing the sketch plan, which is their conceptual plan. This will go to the Board of Trustees next Tuesday, and then from there they still have preliminary plan process and then final plan process. So there's still a ways to go through this planning process. And we've received some letters from concerned residents, adjacent property owners, and so I just wanted to cover the differences between a sketch plan and a preliminary plan so everybody knows what we're talking about tonight versus at the next meeting that they attend. So right now we're at the sketch plan. This is really a conceptual design feasibility review. We have to review whether they have the legal ability to obtain water and sewer at this point. We start talking about the geologic hazards on the site, any environmentally sensitive areas that we should be concerned with, and do they meet the comprehensive plan and the land use code. So again, this is still a high-level review for the project. When they get to preliminary, this is when they start to do all their engineering work and submit those to the staff. So it's our technical review. We'll get our traffic impact report. At that time, we'll look at their road plans, preliminary drainage, erosion control grading plans. The geotech report would be provided at that time, which looks at the soils. So I know there were some concerns about comments about soils, so that happens through the geotechnical report. We will also review utility infrastructure analysis report, so that's water and serviceability. They'll provide utility plans, preliminary landscape plans, lighting plans, and any appropriate environmental clearances or floodplain reports that are necessary. So again, we're not at that phase yet. We're still at that conceptual phase. The three-step process for the developer gives them that ability to continue to move forward, knowing that they're on the right track from the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees. It also lets the neighbors know where we're at in the process and continue to provide their comments through each stage, knowing where we're at in that stage. So I just wanted to give a big overview between the differences. This is their concept plan that they did submit as part of this application. They're still proposing 85 lots. They did, on the concept plan, it's a little different than what they provided at the annexation, because they are showing some more open space areas, which they did not have during the annexation process. So again, they're refining it, and we'll see further refinement as we continue through the process. And then I also want to just kind of touch on a few of the comments that we did receive while we're on the concept plan, because I know there's some concerns. I think that we're not getting the documents we should be getting, and again, I wanted to point out that we're not at that stage yet. And then I know there's also some concerns with traffic study. Again, they're working on that now. We've been communicating back and forth with the applicants. And then the comprehensive study on the soils, and again, that's the geotech report that we'll be getting. And so I just wanted to point that out. There also was some concerns. We sent all the letters to you, and one of those was that we had said there were no comments when the staff report was written. I just wanted to clarify. Each stage, we accept the comments, and those go into the public record. And so at the sketch plan stage, we hadn't received any comments to date for the sketch plan until after the staff report was written. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I know there was some confusion that their other comments were not in the record, and they've all been entered into the public record at each meeting. And I think that's, again, most of those will come out during the preliminary, most of their comments that were in the letters we received. And so with that, we did receive feedback from some of our review agencies, and a lot of them, again, will be providing more detailed information at the time of the preliminary plan when they see more detailed drawings. And so we'll be continuing to work with our review agencies to get that more detailed information out. So I'm not going to go through each of those. They're all in your staff reports. But I did put together some possible motions that you guys can use for this item. Either recommending approval, there's some findings for that approval, which is that the sketch plan that's been submitted does meet the comprehensive plan and the land use code for that sketch plan review. And then conditions that the preliminary plan needs to meet land use code section 3-5, which is where I pointed out all of the technical reports are going to be due. That's listed in section 3.5, so we're requiring that their preliminary plan is fully submitted in full with all of those plans. And the preliminary plan does have a resource extraction, so it has a gas well, and so we're requiring a review permit per the land use code. And so we will be working with the Ludwig 1 well pad owners as well as the property owners to get that review permit reviewed during the preliminary plan stage of the process. And also that the preliminary plan shall include design for the rerouting of the existing irrigation systems per the ditch easement holders and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineering requirements. So those are the conditions. There's also a motion that you can recommend denial with specific findings, or a motion that you can recommend continuance with specific direction to staff and or the applicant. So I can answer any questions you might have of staff right now. Otherwise, I know the applicant does want to speak as well.
Any questions from the board?
No, but thank you for that overview for the record.
Yes, that clarification really helped. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So I guess we'll have the developer come up and.
Nicole, would it be okay if I move this up against the presentation board?
Sure.
PowerPoint? I guess you have it, so maybe that's a bigger copy. I will bring this up because Glenn talked about this as well. For now. And I'll make sure everyone sees this after I'm done speaking.
Hello, everyone. Andy Arnold with SEH. I am representing the developer Glenn Moselle and Mustang Crossing on this sketch plan development that we're moving towards our preliminary plan. I think Nicole did a great overview of everything. I believe everything that needs to be said was contained in her staff report. I just wanted to reiterate, simply because we've had a lot of comments from the neighbors about what certain reports that they want to see, certain reports that will be submitted. Just like Nicole said, we're moving towards preliminary plat and our preliminary application. And what we provided that should be in the staff report for sketch plan is a development report that goes through your code's checklist of required studies and reports. And so I just wanted to quickly go through that, what we will be submitting with preliminary plat is going to be a drainage report. I know that has come up quite a bit, that we had to get to our sketch plan to figure out where we were going to align our lots, make sure that conceptual plan was in alignment with what the town's expectations were. And as you can see from the sketch plan, drainage is largely going to follow the contours and definitely be concentrated on that southern end. We also were going to put in that public amenity or that conceptual amenity of a perimeter path, and we needed to see where that lined up with the lots. Geotech survey and soils reports will be attached to the preliminary plat application. We did submit a fiscal impact analysis already. That was part of the annexation, but that again will be resubmitted with the preliminary plat application. And the traffic impact study. Our engineers are actively working on that traffic impact study. We had to make sure our zoning was correct so we could figure out the density of the development, and now we had to figure out how the lots were going to fit. Now that we have a conceptual plan that has that laid out, we're going to be able to forecast what those traffic impacts will be. With that said, I can answer any questions regarding the sketch plan. I'm going to have the developer Glenn Moselle come up and talk about the overall sketch plan and his vision for this development with you and with our members of the audience. So before I walk away, any questions for me? Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Glenn Moselle from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and good evening. Again, I want to thank you for your time, and thank staff for all their efforts, and thank the neighborhood for their comments. So our plan is evolving, and as was mentioned, we've incorporated a green belt around the entire perimeter of the property. It's about a mile long, and it'll be a crusher fines path, and it'll also have a community park incorporated. These parks will be HOA owned and maintained, so not a burden on the city. And they will be open to the public for the neighbors to utilize as well. So I wanted to introduce a little bit of an architectural theme to it that we're looking to incorporate sort of a modern farmhouse and craftsman theme to the project. Now, we're not building all the homes ourselves, but we will implement architectural standards, work with the home builders, and have an architectural review committee. We're also looking to raise the bar as far as landscape requirements requiring trees and in the front yards and proper landscaping. And again, we're not creating a tract home environment. And we're also not creating a homogenized community. So it should have some interest, should have some architectural integrity. I think it was pointed out that maybe the neighborhood should have more interest in the lots, but I think through architecture we can create a fantastic streetscape and fantastic neighborhood. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have.
I guess I might have one question for you. When you put the sidewalks in, are there gonna be any kind of medium, or is it gonna be kind of like the old Clover Meadows where the sidewalk meets the street and the lawn goes all the way out to the
Right.
sidewalk?
Yeah, we are envisioning rollover curb to sidewalk and not having them separated.
Okay.
There seems to be a bit of a problem, issues sometimes with that separated sidewalk. So.
Well, and I know in Mesa Meadows, it creates a problem when they have the medium, because technically you don't own that, you maintain that, and people do various things, rocks, and then unfortunately when snowplow season comes along,
Exactly.
you know, so I'm glad to see that it would be rolled over curve sidewalk.
To the lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
So since this is still in the public hearing phase, I would entertain any public comment on this matter. And then if there's any questions, the developer could possibly answer those.
Good evening. I'm Kat Katzos, 525 Dove Ranch Road. Nice to see everybody. Dear Planning Commission and Town Trustee, you will hear me say time and again, I'm not opposed to growth and development. If the development meets the requirements of the town comp plan and land use codes, along with thorough consideration of its potential negative impacts, including water sustainability. Regarding the Mustang Crossing sketch plan, different entities have weighed in on their initial non-concerns and concerns. One important consideration that should be the responsibility of the developer and not the builder, nor should it fall to the homeowner or the town after the fact, is the key comment about by the Colorado Geological Survey. The surface soils, and I quote, "The surface soils are underlain at unknown but likely shallow depths by potentially expansive animus formation, consisting of Arcasic sandstone, shale, conglomerate, and volcanic materials." Subquotes. The NRCS soil survey data indicates that the site soils are very limited in suitability for dwellings due to shrink swell. I live in Dove Ranch. Come to find out, I also live on the Animus Formation and know all too well the effects of shrink swell. Sinking foundation, foundation cracks, and multiple large cracks in the stucco. Upon further investigation of the Dove Ranch development, I found the geotech soil report along with grading, soil amendment recommendations, and that additional borehole tests should be done before a home was built. But I did not find in the 7 3-inch ring binders any monitoring of the soil amendments or subsequent follow-up reports that confirmed soil amendments and stabilizing land work had been done. I see in the Mustang Crossing summary that the geotech survey and soils report will be submitted with the preliminary plat application. With that in mind, I'd like to recommend that the Planning Commission and Community Director, welcome Nicole, further consider the noted soil issue by the NRCS And once the soil report is received, clearly understand what should be done by the developer and require the soil amendments be included in the division improvement agreements. I'd also like to ask the Planning Commission to consider this question. Is the rezoned residential density the best use for the land and soil? And what impact, if any, does density matter with soil stability? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. I'm going to try to go fast here because I know Honorable Mayor will cut me off, but
One time.
but I'm going to implement some visual as we move along here. So I'm going to hand these out. And if you would just kind of look at these, kind of browse through them quickly.
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll gather a theme to these handouts. So as you kind of browse through those, you'll see a theme. The theme kind of to me was, and these are very successful small subdivisions, 50 to 90 units. There's a lot of open space and park added to these subdivisions. The last one I'll show you is in the neighborhood. It's going to be discussed tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the one I just handed out is for the Bayfield East that's coming up. And the reason I bring that to your attention is that if you look at that proposal, what's on there? A lot of green connectivity throughout the whole concept and multiple parks. This is done by the same developer or the same design group that Mr. Moselle has hired. Night and day compared to, now look at Mustang Crossing that's up on the screen. Is there any comparison to that to what you see in your packets? Over the last few years, there's been projects come through the town, and those have resulted in subdivisions. And those subdivisions are, I have a packet, and they are Dove Ranch, 0 park, 0 open space. Clover Meadows, 0 park, 0 open space. Clover Meadows 7, a new one, 0 park, 0 open space. Mesa Meadows, 0 park, 0 open space. I guess my point is that at some point, can we stop approving subdivisions with no open space and no parks? Now, I know that the Moselle proposal here of Mustang Crossing includes some open space and some park. But if you take away the buffer around a gas well that no one's going to want to be near, or the open space that they're calling as a retention pond, the perimeter trail only adds up with the park that's in place of about 3.2 acres. There really should be one park for this size subdivision of at least 3 acres, one continuous park. That brings the community together and gives them a place to gather. So that's my hope, is that Moselle has indicated several times he wants to raise the bar. Let's help him raise the bar on this subdivision going forward, and let's have it look more like Bayfield East. And if we're worried about the developer, the last handout, and I'll sit down, is money. We know what he's trying to do with maximum yield of the property. I get that. I'm in real estate. I work with developers all the time. I understand that part. But there's got to be a compromise. This will give you an idea of what the gross profits are on just the dirt part of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I think if you look at the numbers, and we're asking him to really give up from the left side of this to the right side, 6 lots, which would create a great master park within this community. The other thing is he's going to dedicate it to the HOA. They may not allow the public into this park. They have the right to keep the public out if they're taking and paying for it. But if you look at the numbers, for him to give up 6, say right down through the middle, would be a huge asset for his subdivision and for the public and for the connectivity of the project. If you look at the difference in the numbers, they're really very minimal. We're talking millions and millions of dollars here. Let's make him raise the bar with SEH, who I cannot believe that this is their pride and joy of a project. Let's raise it up and do something right and get off of these subdivisions that have no open space and no park space. Thank you.
Any other public input? Seeing none, I'll move on to action item 3, the 2021-12 Bayfield East Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
This proposal, a little bit different. This is a comprehensive plan amendment, so this is at the beginning stage of a development. In this case, before an annexation occurs. The proposed annexation for Bayfield East will include 4 parcels, but only 2 of them are requesting a comprehensive plan amendment. So on the map, you'll see the 2 with the stars, the southern 2 parcels. For this process, they're in front of Planning Commission tonight and then the Board of Trustees next Tuesday. And then they've already submitted their annexation and initial zoning application, which will be in front of Planning Commission on March 8th and the Board of Trustees on March 15th. And then they also will have a sketch plan, a preliminary plan, and a final plan process. They'll be a little bit different because they're asking to be a plan unit development versus straight zoning, but they still go through that 3-step process with the plan unit development. For their comprehensive plan right now existing, they have general commercial, which is the red area. This is on the existing comprehensive plan. Employment and light industrials, the light purple, and then high density residential is that beige brownish color. Their proposal is to reduce their general commercial. You could see it just reducing it to that southern portion along the highway. Eliminate the employment and light industrial altogether. Increase their high density. On the northern part, you'll see it's a yellow color, but that's still, they're saying that that density for that yellow color is still within the high density requirements of the comp plan. And then add some mixed use, which are the orange areas. And then also, as Mr. Blanchard pointed out, proposing some open space and parks throughout their plan. I do want to speak real quickly on, this again went through the agency review. We didn't receive a ton of comments on this one, but we did receive one from the Los Pinos Ditch Company. I had sent them my draft of, or actually the final staff report with the condition that I put in there for the ditch. And they asked to have some language revised, so I did provide that for you. I know they do have a representative on Zoom. And if you are inclined to approve their proposed language, staff doesn't have a concern with it. So that is up to the planning commission, but I did send out the letter, but I also have it on the screen, and they're just proposing that the applicant submit an agreement signed by the applicants and Los Pinos Ditch Company, the ditch easement holder, or a letter of consent from the Los Pinos Ditch Company for the rerouting and design of the irrigation systems through the properties with the sketch plan submittal. So they're asking to modify condition B of my conditions. And so for alternative action A, if you are inclined to approve this comprehensive plan amendment, there are two findings. Finding that it meets the comprehensive plans criteria for comp plan amendments, and also the finding that it meets the land use code criteria for the comp plan amendments, which I do have spelled out in more detail in your staff report. And then the conditions would be that the annexation and initial zoning will be consistent with this amended comp plan amendment and the land use code. They shall submit a letter of consent to the ditch easement holder, which I just showed you what their preference would be for that language. C is the applicant shall obtain a review permit for the gas well with the preliminary plan submittal. So this will be very similar to what we're doing in the Mustang Crossing for their gas well. And then the applicant shall provide a detailed physical impact analysis based on their final land use plan. And so they've already done that as part of their annexation, so staff's reviewing that right now. And you will be seeing that at their next stage in the process. And then there's also an action B, which would be denial with specific findings, and then action C would be continuance with specific direction to staff and or the applicant. And I can answer any questions that you have with staff.
Any questions? Thank you, ma'am. So moving on to 4 action agenda. A.
We need to,
Oh,
is the applicant? The
Oh,
applicant's
yeah.
here.
I forgot he was on Zoom. Does the applicant have anything to add to staff's presentation?
Hello again. Andy Arnold with SEH. I am the applicant representing the development Bayfield East. We're very excited about this development. We are moving, this is again a procedural step where we're amending the comprehensive plan to move towards annexation and then hopefully sketch plan, preliminary plan, and final plan. I think Nicole once again did a wonderful job outlining everything with the comprehensive plan. What you see proposed are, you will see this in the annexation packet, but we have a phased development plan for the entirety of the property. Our phase 1 is what you see at the bottom right of your screen, which is going to have the general commercial, mixed use, higher density residential as a concept. When we were going over Bayfield's plan in 2018 and your future land use code, as Nicole pointed out, some of those uses don't perfectly align with the proposed phasing. Now, granted, it is a phasing plan and conceptual at this stage, but we wanted to make sure that this was aligning with the town's comprehensive plan as we went forward, which is why we're asking for the amendment. Essentially, what we're amending is just what Nicole said. We're bringing down the commercial and we're taking out that light industrial area. We don't have an intention of bringing the light industrial use to this future development. Outside of that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about the application. I should state that we were okay with the amended comment with the Los Pinos Ditch Company. We will be actively working with the ditch company. We also received comments from the fire department about access that, again, we'll be actively working with the fire department moving forward. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer them.
Yes, there are a couple of accesses that the fire department, I think, said. Do you remember which ones they were?
I think I do. Yes, just because they were propose as possible accesses, I believe that the one access that's going to be to the east of the property, we have no designs for that access. I think that might be going through someone's property. Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to try to avoid that. No, actually, right now, when we're talking about access, and there is a lot to be said about access, and we'll be having those meetings coming up regarding CDOT and US 160. Access would be, as you can see on our concept, to the west of the property. It would be going up along that property line, and then future access connections could be made off of that road, including one to the school. So that's the conceptual idea at the moment. I did see that comment, and yeah, apologize for that.
Details.
Yeah.
Good job. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Jeff, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
Yes, sir. Did you have anything else to add to that presentation?
Thank you, appreciate that. So, yeah, this is Jeff Craig. I'm an attorney over here in Vertigo. Good evening, commissioners and Bayfield staff and citizens of Bayfield. Appreciate you letting me appear by Zoom tonight to save me the drive from the big city. Anyway, yeah, so just give you a little background on the ditch. The Los Pinos ditch serves several hundred acres of ag land around Bayfield. We serve some businesses from the ditch, and we also serve, it's the primary water supply for the town of Bayfield. So it's really important to protect the ditch. And we've been involved in several developments around Bayfield that have been similar, where developers have piped the ditch and we've entered into agreements with them. Some of those, I think, maybe have had some slight realignments. Some of those have included Duck Ranch, Sunrise Villas, Cinnamon Heights, Bayfield School project. And we've worked successfully with the developers on all those projects to enter into an agreement with the developers to specify the design for any piping, any realignment for the ditch, what's going to be allowed within the ditch and the ditch easement. And they've been good agreements to make sure that the ditch is protected for all of its users, and also for any residents, particularly children. There's definitely safety issues to have an open ditch running through high-density development. So it's my understanding that the developer desires to pipe and realign the ditch, and the ditch company typically requires piping for developments like this. So we're happy to work with them to make sure that it's a good project. Ultimately, they're going to need to enter into an agreement with the ditch company, whereby we agree upon the design, where the realignment is going to be, and all those kinds of things. So at this point, what we would request is the condition that I sent to Nicole. Nicole had done a good job crafting a condition based on the comments that I submitted, and then I just made a few tweaks to her proposed condition, which I think you have in front of you. And basically what we like to do is just make it flexible, that by the sketch plan stage, they would either enter into agreement with us or have a letter of consent, depending on how far along they are at that point with their design plans. And if they're far enough along where we can reach an agreement on what's going to happen with the ditch, then we maybe will do an agreement. If they're not that far along, then what we would do is probably a letter of consent conditioned upon ultimately entering into an agreement with the ditch company. Definitely prior to final plat approval and prior to construction, but potentially by the preliminary plat stage as well. So modifications to the condition that I propose to call, give that flexibility. And I think you have in front of you, but basically it just says the applicant shall submit an agreement signed by applicants and the West Phoenix Ditch Company, the ditch easement holder, or a letter of consent from the West Phoenix Ditch Company for the rerouting design of the irrigation systems through the properties with the sketch plan submittal. And I think that would take care of the ditch company's concerns at this stage. And then the next step would be for the applicants to enter into a reimbursement agreement with the ditch company to cover its costs so we can move forward, review their design, work on an agreement with them, and then ultimately have an agreement that would specify what we're going to do with the ditch.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Craig? Seeing none, we'll move on to the action agenda.
Wait. Public input.
Oh, sorry. Any public input on this new Bayfield East Comprehensive Plan Amendment?
Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. Just quickly, I like what I see here. It's something different that we really haven't seen before in Bayfield, and I'm encouraged by what I see up here. I think we need to hold the developer to basically what we see, because that is way different than anything we've seen in Bayfield so far. So, encouraged by what I see at this stage of the game. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I guess something that comes to mind for me, Kat Katzos, 525 Deveranch Road, is the forced access for both the Mustang Crossing and this puts undue burden on the existing roads and the traffic flow. I don't know if there's a more creative way to look at that. I don't know if the developer can consider better ways to have two entrances into that subdivision. But seriously, if you think about it, what's happening with Mustang Crossing is quite impactful with it being an elementary school. And the only access in is by that elementary school and the impacts on it. So you may be coming up Louisiana, but it still has everything to do with the kids coming and going from that school. So I keep seeing these subdivisions that are forcing a burden on existing accessing roads. So I don't know what can be done about that, but I'm asking you to ask yourselves and maybe the developers what can be done about that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Brenda Jones, 1035 North Oak. And my concern would be definitely access in that area, because not only the two schools, but the impact on Mountain View. Right now, we only have two accesses to get out of there if there was a fire or something major. And therefore, I think that it would be a concern if there was not more than at least two, if not more, accesses that would go down to 160. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment? All right, seeing and hearing none. Moving on to the action agenda. Approval of January 11th, 2022 minutes.
The applicant wanted to.
Oh, all right.
I thought Andy was going to do it as the agent, but my name's
Shoot
Derek.
your hand up, let us know.
Derek McCoy. Some of you don't recognize me with these on, but I need them these days. So the access deal is more of a solution than a problem. For Bayfield East to happen, we're going to have to do the intersection, and that's been badly needed for a long time. The school recently included it in their plans for their new school, and the owners of Bayfield East dedicated the right-of-way to make that happen. So we have this 4-year dialogue going with CDOT over the intersection,
and it's really going to provide a solution and not a problem. In order for the intersection to happen, we have to provide east-west connectivity, not through East Schroeder, won't happen, but probably through one day Colorado, East Oak, Mesquite, and then one day probably up into Dove Ranch. So those were all things that CDOT wanted to happen. Another thing that happened there was we were able to secure already the permission to break the A line or create that point of access for the intersection. That was about a 2-year effort, and those deeds have been recorded, and CDOT is on board for that. Of course, it'll be pending design of the intersection and construction of the intersection, obviously to CDOT standards. So it really is a solution and not a problem. I think all of you know that the speed limit through Bayfield needs to be lowered. That was another part of this discussion, and it's been documented as well. So with that being said, I'm not the agent for the owners, but I helped them accumulate that acreage, and I've been involved in it for about 5 years. And I do know that they've given the agent permission to accept the conditions and findings, including that language from Jeff from the Los Pinos ditch. And if you have any questions of me, I'll be willing to answer those.
Any questions from the board?
As part of that CDOT agreement and that intersection, is that becoming a lighted intersection, so it's controlled there now? That was the concern from the fire department.
Yeah, it's the developer's intent, hopefully, to make that a full movement signalized intersection. But just like with the project, the intersection can probably be phased as well based on the improvements that are warranted on generated traffic counts or trips, daily trips, ADTs. So we don't know exactly how things are going to turn out with CDOT. If you guys have ever dealt with CDOT, you know that they kind of control the dialogue, but we do have that discussion going. We had meetings recently, and the permission to break the A line was a big deal because the access to that property was restricted up until that point. And so, yeah, the construction and design of the intersection is going to be per CDOT specs.
Okay. So I'm sorry, would you repeat what you said before she told us they're in progress?
Your question again, I got to.
Oh, it was about whether it would be lighted and how, if it was controlled.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, the intersection on the east side of town's been talked about for 25 years. Mm-hmm. I was involved in Cinnamon Heights and Sunrise Estates. We did the improvements there to that intersection that exists today. At that time, 25 years ago, the intersection was going to happen any day. And it hasn't happened yet, but with Bayfield East and the other projects that are coming on, I think that there's a concerted willingness and hope that that intersection will get built, namely because of the school. When the school got built, the owners of Bayfield East dedicated right-of-way to this effort, gave the land so that CDOT would give permission to break the A line. And one day that traffic flow will flow down into this intersection, take pressure off of the intersection at Colorado where the grocery store is, and also on the Eight Corners intersection. CDOT wants to see more east-west connectivity north of the highway in Bayfield because all of the stress is on the Eight Corners and Colorado, which is kind of a substandard situation there as far as CDOT's concerned.
So I have a question, because I was on the board for several years dealing with CDOT.
Yeah.
In your discussions, are they still looking at closing Colorado? Because that was a big
Not in our
concern.
discussions.
Okay.
We really don't have much to do with that. But I do know that it plays into their decision-making.
Right, because that's one thing that they wanted to see closed at the time, that if this intersection came into play, then that
Right.
intersection would be closed off just due
Yeah.
to.
We've done a traffic study and turned it in with the annexation application. But it'll have to be expanded, and it'll have to be expanded with the specific uses and the counts and the turns and everything. So CDOT will be in control of the whole process. The town of Bayfield will be really involved, obviously, the school, and then obviously the projects that are coming on around Bayfield.
Thank you, sir.
Chris?
Derek, can you explain what the A line is and what is its significance?
Highway 160, it's my understanding, is designated an expressway. And when CDOT did their EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, and I don't know the exact date, but it was about 30 years ago, let's say, because Highway 160 is designated an expressway under their code, they restrict access at any point that they can, and they don't typically let access get expanded because they want to move as much traffic as they can along that highway. That's CDOT's main goal, is to move traffic. Well, it just so happens that Bayfield's separated, cut in half by a highway. Our town is. And you see other towns that have multiple intersections, but they are reluctant to give those very freely. So they control all the access points. And so where this intersection will be built one day, there was no access point. And when we gained permission to break the A line or create that access point because of the dedication, because of the school's commitment, and the town, and it was actually the town that applied to break that A line. They were the applicants. You guys were the town. But CDOT controls every access point along that highway, and they want to move traffic. They don't want too many accesses there, and they want to be really involved when there is one, and they will be in this instance.
Thanks.
So there is east-west connectivity. There are multiple points of connection, not East Schroeder, and
I'm gonna get carried.
it will be a solution more than a traffic problem. It will help in Bayfield's traffic flow, no doubt about it. The school wants it desperately too. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question of the representative?
Go for it.
Okay. I guess I'm supposed to come up here. Kat Katzos, 525 Dev Ranch Road. So, as we all know, being residents of Bayfield, our number one intersection that most children have to cross, there's been tons of accidents, huge fatalities. Because of what you just said, that 160 is an expressway. And your intersection, which would be great, it would be one more stopgap, is still not going to stop the way people use the 160. So I think your intersection's a great solution, but I think your intersection should include an overpass for pedestrians. I know that's a lot of money, and that's a big deal, but when you drive down the 285 and you're going down the canyon to get into Denver, there's a high school there, and they put an overpass in because they didn't have any place to put their football field. It's a wise thing to do. It's a good investment because it protects the pedestrians to get to and from the schools. And you've got kids on the south side of town that have to get across, older siblings, back and forth. So I don't know that one more intersection is going to cut it on an expressway. I'm not sure about that, but I would ask if that could be considered.
Derek McCoy again. I think that CDOT would be really in charge of the ultimate design there. The reality around economics always comes into play too. But we have done a lot of things, or the applicants have done a lot of things, if you look at their sketch plan, to create the walkable paths that they have in there with that in mind, with the community and everything. So hopefully the lighted intersection will come to be one day, but that'll be something that CDOT really dictates as far as design goes, based on traffic counts and their regulations and their code and whatnot. So,
Correct.
but point well taken.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other general public input?
I have one more question if this is a time for SEH. And I'm kind of surprised LPA didn't have a comment on this because they've been in front of us a couple times about upgrading that overhead line. So I'm wondering if that's been factored in to the plan at all. It kind of cuts right across that bottom half of the commercial.
Yes, I don't believe we received any comments from LPA at this stage, or LPEA at this stage. But I will say that, like before, this is going to be a sequence process that's going to get more and more refined as we go forward. So easements such as overhead electrical lines will have to be taken into account with final design.
I know they've been pretty opposed to putting that thing underground, but
I don't know.
just cutting right through the middle of a grocery store might be a problematic too.
Yeah, staff will be reaching out to LPA separately on
Okay.
just that whole process for relocation of those poles. So we'll make sure that we tie it all together.
All right.
Good point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions from the board? Public comment? All right, moving on to the action agenda. Approval of January 11th, 2022 minutes.
So moved. Seconded.
I hear a second. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Shea Heidinger,
Yes.
Trustee Politis,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg.
Yes.
All in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Action agenda item B, the 2022-02 Mustang Crossing sketch plan. I'd entertain a motion either way.
I would make a motion to approve the Mustang Crossing sketch plan with the findings and conditions as stated in the alternative action A.
Second.
I hear a second. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Shea Heidinger,
Yes.
Trustee Politis,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg.
Yes.
All in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to action agenda C, 2021-12 Bayfield East Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
I recommend approval of the Bayfield East Comprehensive Plan Amendment with the findings and the conditions that were stated. Should we add the modification to condition B?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to amend that?
Yes. I'll amend that. I'll second that.
That has been seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Shea Heidinger,
Yes.
Trustee Politis,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg.
Yes.
All in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll move on to number 4, discussion and adjourn. Any further discussion?
Just wanted to add something too, as I'm new here, there may be things that you want staff to bring to you as discussion items each month, so I'm open to suggestions on things that, building permits, projects that are been submitted that are not yet to you, things like that, so you're aware. So just let me know if you have thoughts on things you'd like to see, and I'll add those to discussions.
I appreciate that, and I know that you kind of hit the ground running pretty hard, and, so I think, I'm not speaking for the town staff, but I really appreciate everything that you've brought so far, and I think that, everybody else is, so welcome aboard, and,
And thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Awesome. Thank you guys for showing up. Public input is always appreciated. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
You're absolutely correct. Been there, done that one, I'm like, there's something wrong here. Next time I do that, just hit me. But I kind of want to do that so that you're, because of the house thing, you know, he Schroeder goes right through my team.
I was wondering what
Then
they
they just
I
upped
read
the
that. I
HOA
was like,
fee
what the hell are they
like
gonna?
recoup their
How they
money.
gonna go
or-
through? Because it's like dead end. And I've already had to do some other stuff anyway.
Right. I did notice that when I was reading it. I'm like, wait a second. That doesn't.
I mean, they're
Nothing.
absolutely right. I got a sidewalk.
Mason Meadows has nothing. Clover Meadows has nothing. You're never gonna appease, but I was surprised at this time. Yeah, she didn't have anything to say.
I mean, he does have a point, right? You know what I mean? It's like, right. You know, you gonna tell me how much I should charge for a beer at the Billy?
Right?
You know?
Well, and I love when you asked,
hate to do that. I mean,
was
there
that
is
the
the power.
superintendent from Bayfield?
Yeah. Yeah. It took me two or three tries to
Yeah,
get across
yeah.
what I was trying to say.
But
Yeah, you have to decide.
is this one?
Oh, who's got that file folder of the pictures?
Oh, okay.
Where did that go? Kelly had it.
Advisory committee,
Kelly had it last.
more down the road. We don't know the process.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, here's your pen too.
She
I
didn't
wanna
take that, did
it.
she? Hold on.
I gotta return the flower.
Let me call her. How do you do? Uh-huh.
Are you, yeah.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, sir. And I like how you incorporated the green belt because like he stated, none of the other developers have it. So
I've been there
keep
on the
working with
list,
that.
just like you guys are right behind here.
No, we're in,
I know,
I mean, on the list.
but
right.
just
Yeah.
keep working with the people and, doing the best that you can.
What, you guys?
All right.
Because it's a nice place. I just love that place. See you later. I don't, well, I was wondering, because there was one, I think, one over from me.
Right, right.
I'm calling her, she's just not answering.
They don't.
I'll try to get it back for you, Glenn.
But the procedural, the way things are set up and the procedure of it, you can't ask questions, submit comments or.
No.